Hi, Akshita. I welcome you on behalf of LegalEdge After College team. And first of all, I congratulate you for achieving this good rank in CLAT PG 2022. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for your wishes. It's
Okay.
really nice to be here with you.
Okay. So first thing which I really want to know, and the people who are watching right now, they must be like want to know this, that what is your strategy when it comes to CLAT PG 2022?
Right. So I hadn't really started preparing for the exam very much in advance. I mean, if I'm honest, I only properly gave it like a month of my time. Although I wouldn't suggest that because this is an exam that requires much more diligent effort. But I think my preparation was aided by the fact that I am also preparing for the judicial services. And the structure of this paper in itself is conceptual, which is also what they ask you in the judicial services. I knew I had 1 month and I knew most of my basic subjects like your constitution and your criminal laws and contract, etc., were still prepared. Apart from that, the time I had left, I focused on subjects that I weren't covering in my preparation. For example, international law, jurisprudence, little bits of family law. So I think I focused more on those. And Also, in the end, in the last few days, I took a lot of mocks, a lot of practice tests, went over the judgments, basically analyzed the structure of the paper, and went according to that with my prep.
Okay, okay. All right. So what was your first impression when you took the paper in your hand and you have seen that like this time there are six questions followed by a passage. So what was
Yeah.
your impression?
Uh, I think I think it also depends on what set you get, honestly. But when I first got the paper, the first few sets for me were of easy to moderate difficulty. It was only later on in the paper that I realized that there were some subjects that usually are not covered in this exam. For example, there was one big passage of six questions from tax law and company law. It was a mixture of both, which is something I don't think most of us covered. So for the most part, I thought it was a decent and easy paper. At some places, yes, I did think that the paper difficulty was uh, more than what an aspirant would prepare for.
Okay, all right. Okay. So when like what were you expecting? What result you were expecting once you completed
Okay.
your paper and like matched with the
So
answer keys and everything?
yeah, so I was thinking that I wasn't really at all sure that I would score the amount of marks that I scored. When I came out of the exam hall, I thought it went decently only, so it's maybe not that great. It was only later when the answer key came out that I realized that okay, I might have a shot at a good rank. But in that moment, it really did not feel like anything special. And I think that usually happens with most exams because you don't know what the other people have attempted or what their level of preparation is.
Yeah, this happens with mostly like all of
Yeah,
the aspirants. They think that they're
yeah,
not going to get even a four-digit
yeah,
rank and then they end up getting single or two-digit ranks. So this
yeah.
happens. Okay. So the other things which aspirants wants to know is like from where you prepared jurisprudence and public international law because comparatively most of the aspirants think that these things which are troubles them and like they are frightened by these subjects. So what
Right,
is your
right,
strategy for preparing these two subjects?
right. So I think the biggest source for me for both of those subjects were actually my own notes from college. I went back to those notes, and I was fortunate enough that our professors had prepared us well for those subjects. And I was also interested, at least in jurisprudence, even in college. International law, I think, apart from my notes, I also followed a lot of legal edge after college videos only because uh, there were a lot of videos about important international law cases and other stuff like that on your channel. And in the end moments, I think that helped me compile a lot of my knowledge together. um, I think apart from that, what aspirants should do is not skip out on these sections because there is not enough material available, so to say, or it is not important because for the past 2 years we've been seeing jurisprudence and international law questions are turning up. And what gives you an edge over other students who are taking the exam is your knowledge of these subjects, because most people will think that, okay, I can skip this portion. So yeah, I think your videos, especially even the top rankers mock series, had some questions which were from jurisprudence, from international law, and the explanations were very well given. So even after I'd attempted them and I'd gotten them wrong, I would sit down with the explanations and do my own research, and I think that helped me a lot.
Thank you so much for appreciation. Okay, one more thing which I think all of the aspirants wants to know from where and what was your strategy for preparation of case laws? Because when it comes to case laws, they think that what to study, what not to study, from where to study, and all those things.
Right. So again, I cannot thank you enough for the videos, etc., and the mock tests you've put out. Apart from that, I think again in my case it was my judicial services prep which helped, because this year in the Delhi Judicial Services they included a section for legal GK, and since it was a new section, nobody was aware how the questions were going to be asked. So everybody suggested that you should read all recent case laws from this year onwards, so that if that sort of question turns up, you can answer it. So I already had some grasp of it. I actually prepared for that also from your videos only. And
Okay.
and apart from that, I think identifying the cases obviously is most important, which I think there's a lot of resources for now on the internet. But apart from that, I think what aspirants should focus on is how to read a case. And this is actually one of the first things they teach you in undergrad in law school, that you should know how to properly read a case, how to analyze the issues, because CLAT, unlike other exams, will test your knowledge of case law not just on the basis of what was the main point. It will ask you everything and anything around it. So I think it is important, once you've seen the paper and the kind of questions that are asked, that once you've identified your important case, you pick it up and then you read it properly, you cull out your issues and you read all the law surrounding it. And I think that is what helps more than just, identifying the case.
All right, all right. Uh, I'm like ये जो भी आप बता रहे हो ये आने वाले एस्पिरेंट्स whosoever is appearing for CLAT PG 2023-2024 उनके लिए काफी काफी हेल्पफुल होने वाला है. Okay, the other point which on behalf of all the people who are watching who will watch this video, I want to ask you how you handle negative marking in your paper.
Right. So this is a very important topic that I think should be handled for the CLAT PG exam. So now that we're seeing trends this year also, even in the top 20, 25 ranks, there is not very high mark variation. So like even one question can cost you like two, three, four, five ranks, even in the top ranks. So I think there is no straitjacket formula, obviously. But my strategy at least used to be, for this year's paper, there were a lot of questions that you could, with uh, certain level of common sense, eliminate certain options and figure out that A, B, and C can't be the answer, so it must be D. They make no sense, or it wouldn't be proper for those to be the answer. If you can't do that for a certain question, I would say, at least the principle I followed was that I would look at the question and I would try to bring it down to two options that could be the answer or that wouldn't be the answer. And after I had those two options, when I had a 50% chance of getting the answer right, then I would take a call whether this is a risk worth taking or not. But even despite that, I would say if you have even the littlest of doubt that your answer might be wrong or you don't have anything to base your answer on, then you should probably not attempt the question. You should obviously not leave a lot of questions, but you should not try to attempt so many that because of negative marking, you lose a lot. So,
So we
and mark.
call it elimination method. And
Yeah.
we have been talking about this, like doing this practice in a lot of
I
our
think
videos.
this year in the CLAT PG paper, I mean, I saw the paper for last year also, and this year the questions were more contextual. So there were a lot many questions where you could actually employ the elimination method. But if there is a lot more factual questions like CLAT PG 2021, where there were so many questions which would ask you the name of the case law, where you can't really eliminate something if you don't know the answer. So in that case, I think people should skip it. But if it is possible to contextually get the answer, of course, you should go for it.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to ask on behalf of the people who are watching or will watch, this another question that did you make notes? Like, because many of the aspirants they think they should make the notes or they shouldn't make the notes. So, what is your take? And revision. These 2 points, I want you to like tell about these two things.
Right. So again, I think this depends from person to person. I happen to be somebody who can memorize better if I write things down. So I did employ that practice, although I wouldn't say I made notes for everything. So because I was a top ranker's mock student, I had access to these summaries of judgments that were made every month. So sometimes I would just get a printout or put them on my device or whatever, and I would just highlight and I would keep repeating that procedure again and again till it was I was sure that I had a grasp over that case. If I had difficulties with something, if I had, because I was studying from multiple sources, if I had acquired some knowledge from somewhere else, I would obviously note it down. And I think it just depends on you if you can remember stuff without writing it down, of course. But if you can't, and if you need notes, and if you need them to practice one night, like 1 night or 2 nights before the exam, then obviously you should go for it.
Okay. And what about revision? Because this also like happens that बहुत सारे different sources से you study, but at the end आप revise ही नहीं कर पाते हो, and then you get confused while attempting that particular question. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think the strategy I followed was I wouldn't revise everything. I would, whenever I was studying, I would make a note that this is something that I might need to revise in the future. There are some things that you're certain about. I will not forget this. I know for sure now. Should definitely not get into that. You should make a note of what you will forget. And that will not be a very long list if you've been preparing for some time. And you should only look at those things in the end, a day before the exam. You should not try to like do a lot because that is when you will end up confusing yourself. So I do revise 1 day before the exam, but I wouldn't say I will revise everything and anything that I have studied. So I think that sort of awareness is important when you're studying itself.
Yes, to like figure out what to revise, what not to revise, what
Not
you
to
have to
revise, yeah.
keep for the end to revise, what you
Yeah.
could. Okay, okay, all right. So, what is your tips and tricks? What you want to say to the people who are now preparing for CLAT PG 2023 examination, 2024 examination? What are like those minimum 5 things they should not do? Like
Yeah.
5 things they should avoid while preparing for CLAT PG 2023 examination.
Right. So I think firstly, I don't think anybody should start their preparation without a strategy. So I think this is true for most exams, but especially CLAT PG. Once you've decided that you want to take this exam, you have to sit down, look at past your paper, and figure out your strategy. These are the things that will be asked. This is what I have to do, and only then proceed. I think manually studying or like studying automatically on an automatic mode doesn't help anybody because you will end up missing out on things that are important and you will end up reading things that are not. So I think that strategizing is important that way. Once you've done that, I think it is very important to constantly keep following the law. I mean, there are a lot of blogs online, and you don't have to be very, very thorough with it, not very in depth, but you should at least have a working knowledge of recent issues and the issues surrounding them. Thirdly, I would say do not leave your mock practices till the very end. I think a lot of students do that. In the last 10 days, they think, I have studied everything, so I will attempt all the mocks. What that ends up doing is it ends up confusing you. Because there, at least again with CLAT PG, there were this year, although they didn't ask anything in the paper, which was surprising for me, there were a lot of cases around reservation.
Yes.
There are a lot of cases around reservation every year, actually, but this year too. And if you start attempting all these mocks in the end, you will end up confusing yourself कि ये वाला केस इसमें था वो वाला इसमें था. So I would say not to leave your entire. Actually, the best thing to do would be once you've studied something and there is a mock appearing after that, you attempt that mock then, and then you like bookmark or keep aside the questions that you got wrong, and then you prepare them in the end once again. Um, Again, do not, this is more a tip for the exam, but do not try to attempt a lot of questions if you're not sure about it because you know you can score something like 90 even if you've attempted like 110 questions and you could score like 71 if you've attempted 120 questions. So I think that sort of awareness should be there. Yeah, those are my tips.
Well, okay, all right. Like at last, I really want to ask how Legal Edge after college helped you. I mean, we ran a full free crash course online, and you are a mock test series student. So, how that helped you in your preparation?
I think the biggest challenge to any exam preparation is finding out what to study and where to study it from. And once you take away that stress from a student, which I think Legal Edge has done because of your very comprehensive videos, because of your question, the quality of the questions, I think uh, once that is taken away, the job for you becomes much easier. And all you have to do is sit down and focus and study. So I think that was important. Plus, there is always that that guidance that people with more experience than you can put out on the internet or anywhere. And I think Legal Edge did that for new aspirants at least. That if you were confused about the exam, if you don't know what is important and what is going to be asked, or if you do think this is important, if you want last minute revision, I think there were all sorts of videos available on your channel. I mean, any doubt I had, I would sit down with my books and then I would realize maybe I haven't studied international law well enough. Maybe I need to cover this judgment. Or maybe I need to look at videos that just tell me what are the questions that are going to be asked in the exam, because those are the sort of doubts you have when you're preparing. And I would log on to your channel and I would find something. So I think the whole, how comprehensive it was very helpful for me. Even the mock series, I think the explanations were great and they had covered. So, for example, this is just an example I'm giving, but say there's a question and there's four options. You know the correct answer, but you don't know anything about the three other answers. Even in the solutions, they discussed everything about those three other options too. This is a case on. So I think more than what I know, it helps me gather a lot of information about what I don't know. And I think that is what fills your gap for a good preparation for any exam. So I'm very thankful to Legal Edge after college, and it's a great initiative and very quality materials.
Thank you so much for your kind words and these kind of like ranks, these kind of students who actually go through the series and
Yeah,
like see the material the way you have seen it, like helps us to make more and more quality content. So
yeah.
that's it. So all the best, Akshata, for your bright future. I know you're going to do a lot, like good things in your life, and
Thank you so much.
like thank you so much for joining and sparing your time for Legal Edge after college.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great
Thank
talking to you.
you. Thank you. Bye bye.